What's good, y'all? Appreciate everyone tapping in and subscribing. I don't want to make this introduction too long, but today we'll be talking about MS-13 on the East Coast in the state of Massachusetts. In the early 2000s, 2010s, MS-13 had small cliques under the East Coast program in the neighborhoods of East Boston, Chelsea, Everett, Somerville, and Lynn, with members living in the surrounding areas. I'm only here to talk about some of the gruesome murders that led to the RICO of MS-13 in 2016. MS-13's main ops was 18th Street, but they would also beef with other smaller street gangs. A lot of the shootings, stabbings, and killings were being swept under the rug because the state didn't want that type of coverage on the violence going on. But in the early 2010s, the violence had increased from the west to the East Coast. Here are some of the cliques under the East Coast program in Massachusetts.
MS, it's the gang that rules. Don't give a fuck if you Cali or Massachusetts, as long as...
And then we got the main leaders known by La Ranfla Nacional. These are MS-13 leaders in El Salvador prison who ordered and greenlighted any acts of violence around the world. The Massachusetts cliques had heavy ties with the Virginia MS-13 cliques and would have multiple meetings with other MS-13 leaders from surrounding states. In 2012, law enforcement started to work with informants to try and get information on MS-13, even going as far as having a cooperating witness by the string named Pelon to befriend MS-13 members, and even getting jumped for 13 seconds into the ELS clique. This was MS-13's biggest mistake. Pelon was a drug dealer for the Mexican cartel who was serving 10 years in El Salvador prison. The government offered him 3 years off his sentence and to move his family to the US. While in prison, he met a known MS-13 member by the name of Muerto, and they both became close. The government would get him a plane ticket from El Salvador to Massachusetts a few months later, and that's when he met up with Muerto. He would vouch for Pelon, not knowing he was working with the feds. The government gave Pelon a 2006 Toyota Camry with hidden recording equipment so he could record every interaction he had with other MS-13 members. Pelon was the main driver for the cliques, and they trusted him to the point where they would talk about shootings, stabbings, and killings they have committed, and everything was recorded. If you guys want me to make a separate video about Pelon, let me know in the comments. This is my first type of video talking about, gang stuff going on in Massachusetts. So if you guys fucking with it, just, let me know in the comments. It took me a long time to do all this research and reading, talking to people, so let me know in the comments what y'all think. For this video, I will only be talking about the murders they were caught for. If you want me to make another video about the attempted murders and the unsolved murders, again, let me know in the comments. Now let's get right to it. In the early hours of July 16, 2011, around 2 a.m., Braulio was in front of 104 Central Ave in Chelsea hanging out with a few friends when Santos Portillo, an active MS-13 member, approached them and asked them what gang they were in. Braulio told Santos they didn't gangbang, and Santos told him he was an active MS-13 member and for no reason shot Braulio in the head. Braulio died on scene and Santos took off running and would be on the run until police tracked him down in Columbus, Ohio. On October 18, 2014, two MS-13 members by the name of Cuervo and Chucky ran into 18th Street members on Chalmers Street in Chelsea. An argument that turned into a deadly shooting when Cuervo let off one shot towards members of 18th Street but instead hit an innocent bystander inside of her home. Katherin got hit in the head and she died on scene. Around 3 a.m. on December 14, 2014, after leaving the club, Javier and his friend Saul Rivera stopped by an apartment on 60 Chester Ave in Chelsea. Chester Ave was an active area for MS-13 and 18th Street. Around the same time, an MS-13 member known as Vida Loca was around the area looking for revenge for getting jumped by Ortiz and other 18th Street members the night before. They also burned him with cigarettes. He decided to walk over to Chester Ave. When he arrived, he noticed a group of men in front of the apartment, and as he got closer, he realized it was Javier Ortiz and a few other members of 18th Street. An argument began and he started to call them out, but they didn't pay him any mind. Vida Loca ended up leaving and called up another MS-13 member by the name of Crazy to bring him a clique-owned gun so he can kill the 18th Street members. Crazy was down the street in Everett at a garage hangout area for MS with 3 other members. Crazy agreed to drive to Chelsea with his cousin Brujo to meet up with Vida Loca. About 20 minutes later, Crazy and Brujo arrived on Chester Ave. They noticed Vida Loca a few houses away waiting on some steps. Vida Loca told him that Ortiz and one other person went inside of 60 Chester Ave and told Crazy and Brujo to stand guard at the front door. Vida Loca goes inside the apartment, and as he's walking in, Javier was walking to the bathroom. Vida Loca starts shooting and hits Ortiz in the back 3 times. As he starts running towards the front door, he sees Ortiz's friend Saul and starts shooting at him, but only hit him once in the chest. The apartment owner and Saul both identified Vida Loca as the person who shot Ortiz to the police. They put a warrant out for his arrest. On December 16, 2014, Crazy offered Belon $400 to drive Vida Loca to New York. He agreed and told police about the plan. They would later be pulled over on Mass Pike and Vida Loca would be placed under arrest. In March 2015, MS-13 leader of the Everett Loco Salvatrucha, Herman Hernandez, known as Terrible, was arrested. Members of the ELS clique believed that someone in the gang had been talking to police. They started to believe that Jose Aguilar, known as Fantasma, an active MS-13 member from the Everett Loco Salvatrucha clique, was responsible for Terrible's arrest. Crazy got in contact with MS-13 leaders in El Salvador to get the green light to kill another MS-13 member who they believed was snitching. They believed that Fantasma was talking to police, which wasn't true. Crazy and another MS-13 member by the name of Gato started to plan how they were going to kill Fantasma. Around April 2015, they were planning to bring Fantasma to a Somerville restaurant and then to a modern MS-13 hangout area in the mountains, but an MS-13 member named Inocente got arrested and the plan didn't go through. In June 2015, members of the ELS clique told Gato that they wanted Fantasma killed soon. On July 5, 2015, Perez met up with Gato and Lawrence at a home that Gato and Fantasma lived at. They waited for Fantasma to get back home, and when he arrived, they told him that they needed to go out and look for someone who broke into their home. Once the 3 MS-13 members arrived at O'Connell Park, Gato grabbed and held Fantasma as Perverso began to stab him with a large knife. After a few seconds, Gato dropped Fantasma and began to stab him with a pocket knife. They both ran away and left Fantasma dead, where police would later discover him after a person walking by found him. On July 8, 2015, Gato and Perverso and another MS-13 member were arrested after police conducted a raid at a Somerville home where they found guns, knives, and drugs. MS-13 members were known to create fake Facebook accounts to catfish members of the 18th Street so they could try and kill them. MS-13 members were messaging Wilson for months pretending to be a girl and gained his trust. On the early hours of September 7, 2015, Wilson agreed to meet up with who he thought was a female. The girl told him that a friend of hers could pick him up. Wilson was picked up by an MS-13 member known as Chuchito. Wilson did not know that Chuchito was MS. Chuchito drove Wilson to Constitution Beach in East Boston where the female told him to meet him at. The both of them started walking on the beach towards the yacht club. That's when 3 other MS members known by Sangriento, Gasper, and Street Danger, who were hiding in some bushes, jumped out and started walking up to Wilson. Street Danger was Wilson's cousin. After a few seconds, the 4 MS members began to stab Wilson, taking turns stabbing him and shooting him. He was stabbed 33 times and beat with rocks to try and throw the police off by not being able to identify him. All 4 men ran away and Wilson's body was found near the yacht club by someone walking their dog. Wilson was only 15 years old. On September 20th, 2015, 2 weeks after the brutal murder of Wilson Martinez, MS-13 members were on the hunt. A MS-13 member by the name of Animal was on Trenton Street in East Boston when he seen an 18th Street member by the name of Humile. Words were exchanged and Animal pulled out a knife. Humile took off running. Animal caught up and began to stab him in front of dozens of witnesses. Humile was pronounced dead on scene.
No, si nosotros hemos hecho pedos en la calle con estos morritos, yo los he andado también allí, los hemos andado topando cuerdas.
¿Y cuántos trabajos le pegaste?
De culero les han pegado los 3 puyones yo, pero era una ondita arriba,
bonita.
Y el pedo estaba que...
cuchillo más el que sabrá igualito, el que el de más.
Ya habrá, el pedo está que el culero va.
¿Y dónde lo pegaste? ¿En el pecho o en
el pedo está que el primero lo pegué aquí, y caía muerto, va, y le llegué, va, cuando ya estaba detrás del yo, va. Y ya le llegué y me quedó viendo los dos y me dijo, va, si lo iba a reventar, si lo iba a apoyar. Y yo le dije, le dije que Simón, le dije, la Mara te controla, chavala, le dije yo, va.
¿Y todavía te habló?
Por eso, y el loco estaba allí derribado, va, y después se paró todavía, va, y yo al mirado cuando había parado, va.
¿Sabes que ese maldito tenía aire, vos? Porque yo le pegué un batazo en la cabeza y se me paró, fíjate, también.
Pues de culero ya sabrá qué pedo, va. El culero se paró y me dijo, esta la vas a pagar, me dijo. Y yo al otro lado de la calle ya, va, pero el más yo sabía qué pedo, la onda que le había tirado, lo que le había hecho, yo sabía que es lo que...
¿Ya lo habías puñaleado en la espalda? ¿O todavía no?
El pedo está, por eso, y el loco, y yo ya me iba chiviando, ya estaba derribado, pues, y yo me iba chiviando pensando que el maje ya en él, va. Y el maje se paró, va.
No jodas, y te dijo.
Y me dijo, la vas a pagar, me dijo, pero no alcanzó a contar quién fue que lo timó, va. Siempre se fue, va.
¿Y qué pedo? ¿Pero no regaste a darle?
Ajá. El pedo está que venían mujeres, todo. Y ya habrá que pedo, va.
Entonces ese maldito se para, después de que lo puñaleaste se paró, le dijo, puta.
Si el culero va, corrió un pedacito y caía tirado, va. Entonces yo lo alcancé, va, de vuelta, va, y ya fue que lo terminé, va.
Maníaco, perro, puta, loco, venga.
On January 2nd, 2016, around 10:30 at night, Jose sent Omar multiple texts to meet up. Omar wasn't a part of MS, but MS members thought he was playing both sides when someone told him that he was seen with members of 18th Street. Omar had a bad feeling and knew if he didn't go, they would jump him or worse. At the time, Omar was at his girlfriend's house. Around 11:30 p.m., Omar met up with Jose and 2 other MS members on Main Street in Everett. Once they got under the Townstone Street Bridge, Jose shot Omar in the back of the head without any warning. The 3 MS members ran away from the scene. Omar's girlfriend kept calling his phone but would not get a response. She called Jose to ask if he was with Omar, and Jose tells her that he never met up with him, obviously lying to her. When police arrived, they found Omar under the Townstone Bridge in a pool of blood, barely alive, next to some MS graffiti. On May 26, 2015, Chris ran into MS members known as Chapin and Chucky on Chester Ave in Chelsea. This video shows what happened on May 26th. Within a few seconds, both MS members started attacking Chris, who was an 18th Street member. Chucky pulled out a knife and started stabbing him multiple times while Chapin punched and kicked him. Both men ran from the scene and police found Chris with multiple stab wounds around the corner. Chris had life-threatening injuries but was able to survive this attack. Chelsea police detectives would later go to the hospital to try and get any information they could, but Chris did not want to talk and feared that someone would come looking for him or his family. A few days later, a detective went back to talk to Chris and he identified Chucky and Chapin as the 2 who attacked him and his friend. In 2014, Chucky was the one who provided another MS member a gun that killed Katherin Gomez. Both men were arrested and held. Chelsea detectives moved Chris and his family to Worcester for his safety. MS-13 leaders found out Chris had snitched and gave a green light to members to kill him. After spending months trying to track him down, on January 10, 2016, MS-13 members finally found where Chris was living. MS members used the same fake Facebook account pretending to be a girl that they used to kill Wilson in September 2015 to find Chris. Chris had made plans with the girls to meet up, and she told him that her friend could pick him up. Chris told her the address, and that's when MS members began to plan what to do. Sangriento drove out to Worcester where he would pick Chris up. Not too many details were given on what happened inside that car ride, but when they arrived at 144 Falcon Street in East Boston, 3 MS members known as Seco, Demente, and Ninja were waiting. Chris thought that they had arrived at the girl's house, but when he got out the car, Demente and Seco ran up and began to stab him multiple times in the face and body. Sangriento would also join in. Ninja ran up and shot at close range, emptying his gun into Chris. Before leaving, Sangriento chopped off one of Chris's hands, and then they took off. When police arrived, they found Chris dead with multiple stab and gunshot wounds. Chris was approximately stabbed 48 times, with metal tips of the knives used were found in his skull. Blanca was the girlfriend of MS-13 member Crazy, who was the leader of the Everett Locals clique. Crazy had heard rumors that Blanca was talking to one of his ops from the 18th Street and gave the green light to MS members to kill her. At the time, Crazy was under police custody under RICO charges for the early raid of MS in January. On June 14, 2016, Blanca met up with Jose and Angel. While walking in the area of 54 Princeton Street in East Boston, Jose and Angel convinced Blanca to break into a shed in the back of a house that was under construction. Once all three were in the shed, Angel and Jose started to stab Blanca and even beat her with a propane tank. She was stabbed 15 times and left dead. Her body wasn't found until the next day by construction workers, who immediately called 911. Angel and Jose were caught when bloody handprints in the shed came back testing positive for their DNA. On December 9, 2016, a dog walker reported seeing someone's body in the Belle Isle Marsh in East Boston off of Bennington Street. When police arrived, they discovered a decomposing body. A few days later, the body that was found was identified as Carlos, who had been reported missing since November 13th by his family. He was stabbed 18 times and left to die. Both Jorge and Morris were MS members who were trying to get promoted. They were both caught in 2017. On December 24, 2016, Lewis decided to meet up with Berreso, not knowing he was an MS member. Berreso was a part of the 13 Locos Salvatrucha clique, but since the feds locked up his whole clique, he was left alone. He decided to put in work to become a part of another active MS clique known as Psycho Loco Salvatrucha. The two met up at the football stadium in East Boston. Other members of the Psycho and the Huntington clique would be waiting inside to watch Berreso kill Lewis. Berreso stabbed and slashed Lewis multiple times because he heard he was from 18th Street. Lewis fell down some stairs where he bled out and died. Before leaving the area, Berreso checked Lewis's body to see if he had any number 8 or 18 tattoos, which is what 18th Street members get. Police would later arrive and found Lewis dead behind the benches inside the stadium. The murder went unsolved for 2 years. In 2017, Gruesome would be arrested by ICE for being here illegally. Gruesome would convince the judge that he wasn't a gang member and that he was trying to live a peaceful life. The judge agreed to let him be freed in 2018. A month after his release, Gruesome would catch another body in Lynn. This time he would catch a body with members of the Psychos Locos. Gruesome and the Psychos Locos clique would be taken down a few months later in 2018.